There have been some very insightful views here. I'll talk, from the perspective of being very close to jobs and skills and seeing how jobs are changing. And there's a lot of discussion about how to be on the driver's seat rather than the consumer's seat. So towards the end, I'd like to make a few comments on that. So let's just, the new technologies is this umbrella word where, as the first speaker also said, we really don't know what it means. But let's figure out very simply what is driving this conversation. And probably the start of this conversation around new technologies started in 2012. I mean, that was the seed where in University of Toronto a disruption was done which is called deep learning in artificial intelligence. Right, and that's what has from that seed, flown in throughout the globe on this whole debate that what is artificial intelligence doing to jobs. So simply saying, what did deep learning do? Just before 2012, if you look at what we call as the computer vision problem, that was not solved. A few of you might be amazed to know that before 2012, if you gave a picture to a computer of, let's say, a photograph clicked here, and say that, can you tell me where is the chair and where is the person and where is the glass, the computer couldn't do it. Right? And after 2012 with deep learning, this problem got solved for a large number of potential pictures. Right? And that was the disruption which happened, that some of these tasks which humans do very easily, like seeing, like I'm saying something to you right now and you can automatically transcribe it into text in your head and understand what I'm doing. So the first problem of that is also solved now. So now machines can transcribe text at the same accuracy as humans. The second problem is still not solved, which is understanding that text. But what really happened with deep learning and allied technologies which came out that many things which humans do simply got automated. Now, what does that mean for the job world and for India specifically? Again, going back to what both the speakers have mentioned, that a lot of work which happens in India is rudimentary, right? So, if you look at the call centers, what has now been automated is that if you have a handwritten piece of paper and you have to digitize it, that's become automated. So that job goes away, right? What is happening when you're talking in a call center or on a chat, the first part of it is automated. A chatbot is talking to you. And then when the chatbot can't handle the conversation, which is becoming complicated, then it gets shifted to a person. Whereas 10 years back, it was the person from the outset. Right? So what is happening is that machines have started now doing what we call as narrow tasks automatically. So jobs which are around these narrow tasks are getting automated. And tasks which are complicated or open-ended, we still need humans to do. So yesterday, if a call center was hiring a person, they would say that a person who can, if I'm hiring a chat agent, what is good enough for me is that if he or she can type in English and write grammar and do basic understanding of what the person is saying. But now we say, no, that piece the chatbot is doing. So what a person who can really understand the problem of the customer when the chatbot is not able to handle it and be able to solve it. So what is happening is that the skill level is increasing. On what you could get a job before, which was this narrow rudimentary skill, that job is going away. And you need to enhance your skill level to be able to get the job, which kind of could be challenging for India, because when we do our national employability reports, we see that even these rudimentary skills, we will not have 50 to 60% people who are coming out of bachelors having these skills. And now that level is going even above. So we really need to push up building these skills. Let me take another example. If you look at the IT services industry, here I'm talking about the likes of Infosys, Wipro, Capgemini. 10 years back, when they were hiring a fresher, they would just test English and cognitive skills. They would not test programming at all. They would say that we would put these people in a 3 to 6 months program and teach them programming. But today, if you look at the top 5 IT services companies, they all test programming. And they say that programming is now a basic skill which we need. We will train them in IoT, in front-end development, in data science, in app development, all these skills over the next 3 to 6 months. Another statistics which will be interesting, how does this change the scenario for India is that if they were testing just English and logical, 17% of our engineers were employable by that test. But if they are now testing computer programming, only 5% are employable by that test, right? That means that programming has now become a basic ingredient. You have to start teaching that. So in the new world, what are the new skills is that the basic rudimentary skills, things which humans do easily, is no more a skill because machines are able to do that. So what kind of skills do you need? We know that machines can't do open-ended tasks. So writing programs is still an open-ended task. Hopefully, I'm not seeing a disruption happening in programming for the next 10 years, so the programming skill is not going. But being able to do open-ended tasks is a skill which will continue to be required, right? I can give you another example, right? If you're recruiting, the machine can engage with the person. Again, it could be a chatbot or they're automatic emailers, right? So if you guys are now booking appointments with someone, it could be that it's actually an automatic emailer from the other end who's helping you book that slot. There's really no person. But if you want to convince someone to join a company, you need a human intervention here. Machines still don't do well. Right? So the skill, yesterday I might be hiring 100 recruiters just to call a person and saying, are you interested? What are your details? That job is gone. But convincing that person to come for the company, that job is still there. The other thing is that because of all this disruption and these new kinds of jobs which has come in, which is people who know how to apply data science and AI to different kinds of problems, right? And this is to what Dheeraj was talking about, that my own view is that he was talking about behavior and the jobs will be in behavior. I think the management folks are good on asking the right questions. He's saying that you need to really influence behavior. That's a question, that's the task. But it's the technologists who are giving answers to these questions and saying how you can do that, right? So why are we not in the driver's seat? I'll give you one statistics which will probably, which is now an often quoted statistics, which will give you an idea why we are not in the driver's seat. If you look at the whole research output, and I'm sitting between academics here, research output in AI from India in top AI conferences, Tsinghua University in China alone does more than that every year. If I would talk about the field of AI and say that there are how many researchers of substance and repute in this country who publish in top conferences, it won't be more than 30 or 40. And so we do not have a critical mass of experts in new age technologies. That's what I wrote my book about. So what we are talking about today about AI is a symptom of the larger science ecosystem in the country. We, many years back, missed the Industrial Revolution for various reasons. There are people who claim that before the Industrial Revolution, India's GDP was 20 or 28% of world GDP, and then we couldn't participate in the Industrial Revolution, and we swung down. But then we missed the Internet Revolution, and why we say we missed the Internet Revolution is because none of the largest internet companies come out of India. And then we missed the mobile revolution, and now we are in the phase of missing the AI revolution, because these technologies come out of somewhere else. We don't create these technologies. Those countries have this ecosystem where these technologies come out and entrepreneurs exploit this technology to create successful companies, and then they feed back into those creators of those technologies. So, of course, Silicon Valley is like the example for that. But we are not doing that, and that's because we don't have a critical mass of experts in these areas, and we don't have a critical mass of researchers in these areas. And if we don't change, this trend will continue. AI is just a symptom. Tomorrow it will be neuroscience. Day after it will be biotechnology. These are the fields which will get disrupted in the next 10 to 20 years. So on that, what we really need, and simply stating it, is that if you look at the science ecosystem, it's like the economy of pre-90s. It's tightly held by the government, it's tightly regulated. I know I'm sitting between two academics, they may have a different view, but I still think that they have a lot lesser autonomy than they should have to thrive and become world-class institutions. So we need to liberalize the science ecosystem so that we become the creators of new knowledge and we participate deeply into this process of creating new knowledge, and then we would not be following as we are doing today. Thank you.